Microphone check. Okay, so check. Listen, very big episode. Listen, y'all know how we love to do. We get in our bag. It's not just regular conversations. We don't just pull up on each other and talk crazy, but we have very specific and important conversations too. As always, it is Dev the Voice, man. And 100-something episodes in. I actually have no idea how many episodes in, but I have not introduced my co-host, and I never will. So I'm gonna let them.
But you have one time, but we're not gonna get into that.
Yeah, maybe once.
You know the vibe. Bedside Benson, most versatile last name in the game. You feel me? Hey, today I think I am public policy Benson because I'm getting my
But those don't sound the same. I thought it was supposed to sound the same.
No, I make the rules.
Let them have it.
You can't tell me the rules of my own last name. It doesn't work out like that.
Let them have it. But y'all know the vibes of Don Jones, aka Baritone, deepest voice in the game.
And we get deep in the questions today.
Yeah, that's a fact.
No.
Oh,
no.
Wow.
I don't like that one. Yeah, no.
Listen, man. Listen. First off, the squad is here. We podding today. We taking this to another level. We keep raising the bar. Nobody's catching up. I was about to start rapping. Let me stop. Man, listen. Make sure you play this one twice. Make sure this one. I think Johnny. You'll hear about him in this episode. Say something about shock value. But I think this episode. It's not necessarily shock value that we going for, but it's like some very specific things that everybody needs to be paying attention to in this episode, man. So I'm not gonna hold y'all up. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, vibe, in the words of the good brother Bedside, and leave some reviews. Stop going on this Apple Podcast, listening to this podcast, and not leaving reviews. So make sure you leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. Listen, man, so this is how we gonna do this episode. As you know, we have what I would say, fellas. First off, I'm never introducing y'all. We're not even doing the intros right now. But what I'll say is that we are working to constantly expand our range a little bit, try to get in that Beyonce level of content creation, put us at the top of that pyramid. So today is something that we have that we locked up in the vault, something that we worked hard on. But it's special, man, and this is for the people that started with us in day one. This is for the people that listen to this podcast in our backyard, people that are from where we from, even though, of course, you know, shouts out to Germany.
Yo, come on now.
Yeah, shouts out to whatever military base is listening on Germany. Yeah,
Shouts out to Brockwurst.
Come on now, man. Shouts out to Don. It's somebody. It's like I don't. Is it Japan? It's like one. Is it Japan?
It's like one in Japan.
It's like 2 people in military bases across the country that listen to this podcast, man. So shouts out to whoever you 2 people in Germany and Japan are. But most importantly, shouts out to everybody that's been a part of this and pushing us to even get stuff like this done. But it's probably about to be one of my favorite episodes, man. So we do have a guest in the building with us.
Yes, we do.
We do. We have the Cleveland's own. Cleveland can't wait. Yo, come on, man. We got Justin Bibb in the building today. How are you? What's good? What's
Doing
good,
well,
King?
man. Good. That's a good slogan, right? Cleveland can't wait. You like that?
Cleveland can't wait, man.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Listen, and I see you got the Cleveland is the reason hoodie on.
Sponsored by ILTHY. Great brand in town, doing big stuff. Midwest kids.
Come on now,
you got the LeBron hat that fast, man.
Oh,
like,
I had it before Bron had it. Bron got
it. Come on,
you got the scoop, man.
Yeah, Bron had it.
I need to find your connect. You know,
come on, baby. Come on. Now.
Who you think brought Brian back here?
Speaking of LeBron, I feel like I'm at the shop right now.
Do you?
Yeah. We like those vibes.
Hey, don't give us no ideas.
Hey,
listen,
right?
we execute on ideas. we execute on ideas.
Don't let us get it. Don't let Biden give us a stimulus.
Come on, man.
That's stimmy, huh?
Another round of the stimmy. Nah, man, listen. So I guess let's just start here, man. But I want to just check in with you. I think we always check in. These guys will tell you that I don't care, but I do care about how everybody on this podcast is always doing. They think I don't care about how they're doing, but I do care. So don't let them cap to you, man. But how are you? How is your mental health, man? It's a lot going on right now. You in a big political campaign, so
doing well. Running for office in the middle of a pandemic is not easy.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your first time.
Yeah.
Running for office. Like many folks across the country, I have Zoom fatigue every day. You're doing like 10 Zoom calls back to back to back.
Yeah.
But what really gives me a lot of energy and excitement is just really trying to find new ways to meet people where they are, do voter engagement in a real, authentic way.
Yeah.
And really just trying to find ways to really excite people about getting involved in this election and this campaign.
I love it.
When you think about the fact that we had such a low voter turnout in 2020 in the city of Cleveland, and that was a big election. last year. And so finding ways to tap into that energy and excitement and just give people hope that the political process can actually work is a really big challenge, but we're trying to do everything we can to make that happen.
I like it, man. Well, look, I tell you what, we glad that you're here. We appreciate you coming through today. You brought some good weather with you. We here. We ready to get this into. So we ready to get this started. So let's just go ahead and get right into it, man. You are one of, or honestly, let's just say it like this: you are Cleveland's youngest potential mayor now.
Yeah.
Like 34.
I turned 34 April 26th.
You turned
Yeah,
so you about to be. Yeah, so
man.
you're not even
Birthday, make sure we drop a happy birthday.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe drop this on my birthday. That'd be a good birthday gift.
I got you, man. Hey, it's gonna be your birthday month.
There we go.
But yeah, so you one of Cleveland's youngest mayors, man, and you talked a little bit about how we've had our youngest voter turnout. How do you think that the city of Cleveland is ready for a mayor so young? Is that role a young man's game or a young woman's game, or is that more of an experienced leader's game?
Great question. I'd say absolutely Cleveland's ready. And the fact that we're at the tail end of the month in March and, thinking about the year our city and our country experienced in 2020, and yet I'm really the only announced credible candidate in the race thus far, shows you that we got the courage to lead the city on day one. And I don't think age is a predictor of courage. I think the question is, do I have the lived experience that reflects the pain and the hope and the struggles that folks are going through every single day? Absolutely. Do I have the management experience of understanding how cities work from the grassroots and the grass tops? Absolutely. And so when I think about what's at stake in this election, the question should not be who the next mayor should be, but what kind of mayor we need. And it's the what we got to focus on as we think about what we need to move our city forward.
I like it.
So we may see these bids from older candidates like Dennis Kucinich, Zach Reed is going to be his second time running up to entering the race. If you were to win, how would you work with these figures? Like, how would you learn from in your role too as well?
I think it's important for me to say this. I stand on the shoulders of a lot of great giants in this city. You think about the legacy of Carl Stokes, being the first black mayor of a large city in this country. And he really is a scion of politics in Cleveland. And I would also say, the current Mayor Frank Jackson, has been a good servant to our community. He's managed the city's money well. He's been important. He helped weather the economic crisis in 2008. And there are many good public servants working in City Hall right now. But I think when you think about the future, and I think this election is about the future, we need a mayor who understands how to use technology, how to leverage innovation, how to make sure we can compete with like Pittsburgh, Columbus, Cincinnati, because those cities are kicking our butts right now. We're not even at the table competing in an effective way. And so I got to make sure I can work with anybody, right, who believes in that vision. And, having a constructive, effective relationship with city council and other elected officials has to be a part of how I get that done. Because I'm not naive to think that one mayor can solve all these problems, right? We got a $1.8 billion budget, over 8,100 employees. We can't solve child poverty by ourselves, right? We can't bring back communities like Mount Pleasant, where I grew up, by ourselves. So it's going to take a mayor who can work with the council folks in Mount Pleasant and in Clark Fulton, a mayor who can call up the CEO of the Cleveland Foundation or the Gun Foundation and get more grant investment where I need additional capital to invest in our neighborhoods. So, I think having the leadership and the ability to say, you know what, I can't solve all these problems by myself, but I want to be a good teammate and a good partner with you to lead the city forward needs to be a key ingredient of the kind of leadership we need in every sector in this city.
So with the rumors, the whispers of Bashir Jones running as well, it seems that you all have two different agendas. So how do we kind of avoid pitting two African-American black candidates against each other?
This is democracy, right? and I welcome anybody to get in this race, because if we have a competitive election with competitive candidates, it's going to make me a better candidate and make me a better mayor. And I think Bashir Jones has done remarkable things in the community of Huff, and we need more young black folks running for office and getting involved in politics. And I would also say, and to push back on that, would say that I don't think our agendas are that different. Mm-hmm. I think Bashir wants what's best for everybody in the city, just like I do.
Right.
Now, we might have different policy visions to get there, but I think we share the same desire and passion for making Cleveland a better city, particularly for black people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think it's important to have a healthy dialogue and debate about how we get there, because, you know, our residents have different opinions as well. Yeah. And the agenda for black people is not a monolithic agenda.
Speak on it.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all black people don't think alike.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's okay to have more than one black candidate in the election.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's healthy for our community to have that debate, because we become a stronger community by getting in the trenches and having those hard conversations.
Yeah. You know, I guess we hinted at it when we started this interview, but you talked a little bit about your campaign slogan, which is super catchy, super important.
Come on, baby.
Come on now. Yeah.
Great marketing.
Yo, listen.
Great marketing.
Hey, lucky we not dropping bombs this week.
Hey,
man. So Cleveland Can't Wait is the campaign slogan. Cleveland Can't Wait is the pretty much what I like to, when I was thinking of it and when I heard it and first saw it, it's the energy that you putting into this campaign. Mm-hmm. When you think of Cleveland Can't Wait and the sense of urgency that it gives both the voters and you and the other leaders that are in office, where do you think maybe some of Cleveland's past leaders went wrong or lost that energy or that sense of urgency with taking care of some of the needs that we as people in Cleveland, in Ohio, in the Midwest felt like this is a problem and it needs addressing?
You know, the first thing I would say around that is I was really affected personally after Tamir Rice was murdered in 2014. Mm-hmm. And it hit me in a different way because, you know, I just moved back to the city from New York then, and I was trying to understand kind of where the community was in terms of change. And there was all this talk about the Cleveland Renaissance. We had LeBron coming back that year. Yeah. You know, we got notice that we were going to get the Republican National Convention. Right. We were at the precipice of seeing nearly $10 billion of concentrated economic investment to bring back downtown and other neighborhoods in the West Side. And there was this talk of the Cleveland Renaissance. But when you look around the city at that time, you know, I started to, you know, have this question in my head. You know, there are these great symbols of a Renaissance, but where is the substance of that Renaissance? And then you have Tamir Rice, and seeing the city's response to Tamir was as if it was expected, right? There was no urgency around how do we do things differently around criminal justice reform in our city. Right. It took the federal government, the U.S. Department of Justice, to come in and say police reform needs to be an important issue for our community. Mm-hmm. And so it was a missed opportunity. Yeah. And then you have a lack of leadership when George Floyd is murdered and no real visible leadership in our city to say, you know what, where are we as a city to be on the vanguard of showing the world that we can enact real change around uplifting, you know, black and brown communities across our city and our region. And we missed the mark there. I would also say there's been all this talk about the digital divide. Yeah. Right? And we are the least connected city in America. So if you go to Glenville, you go to Mount Pleasant, you go to Clark Fulton, Wi-Fi is hard to access. Yeah. Yes. And having access to high-speed broadband is a matter of economic justice now. I mean, it should be a basic utility.
That's a fact.
And you have folks organizing in 2017 in that last election, and they literally gave the city a playbook saying, look, this is how we can close the digital divide 4 years ago. Yeah. and no one did anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? AT&T wanted to, advance 5G, but the city was asleep at the wheel to make sure that they were laying the right kind of fiber in order to do that in certain neighborhoods, right? So you have an active private sector partner trying to come to the table and think about a way to address this, and we don't have a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
So where does that non-sense of urgency comes from?
Complacency. You have folks that have been in politics for their whole life. They've gotten their pensions all set. They've gotten their power base solidified, and they're comfortable.
They're cruising,
right? And it's all about them.
Yeah.
And until we have a political culture in this community that demands more, that expects more, that holds politicians accountable, then we won't see that real change. I'm not getting into politics because I needed a pay increase.
Yeah.
This is a pay cut for me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not getting into politics because, I want to see my name in the headlines.
Yeah.
Right? I'm doing this because I think our community deserves better.
Yeah.
Right? And and we need to set the standard high in terms of who we elect. And really just change that narrative, because for far too long we've let folks who've been there forever just get away with getting along to get along.
Yeah.
This is what it is. It is what it is. Culture.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
I like that little flex. He said, "Yo, I ain't doing this for the bread now."
Yeah, come on.
I mean,
no, but
it's the truth.
so you've been these high executive positions, CSO of Urban Nova.
That's right.
And then also too, you're at KeyBank for a
Yeah.
minute too as well.
Yeah.
So that might get off the perception that you might be a businessman first.
Yeah.
So how can the people trust that you're gonna be the people's mayor instead of being the businessman? Because we've seen in the past that a lot of politicians, sometimes when they come from a very corporate background, the people are like, "Wow, you're thinking about the dollar first, then thinking about me, the average citizen," and then and also too, you might not connect with me because you maybe made more money, you might be more educated than maybe me. So how can the people trust you? Because you might have other candidates that are more maybe grassroots, and they can connect with people on I want to say economic level, but they can understand it a little bit more.
To that point, I would say that why shouldn't our next mayor have experience advising a $1.7 billion business with over 1,000 employees?
Yo, wait, hold on. Yo, we should turn the sound effects up.
Yo, I like that.
Right.
He's right. He's like, why are we not?
Why shouldn't the next mayor have experience, working directly with other mayors across the country and giving them counsel and new ideas and new tools to make their cities better? I've been in the boardroom with CEO of large Fortune 100 companies. I've been in council chambers with the mayor of Tulsa, the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, the mayor of Miami at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, advising 12 plus mayors in one room about how to think differently about smart cities technology and what that means for racial and economic justice. And as the mayor, I'm leading a $1.8 billion municipal corporation with over 8,100 employees. And so my experience in negotiating large contracts, getting deals done, navigating politics of a public corporation board that's publicly traded in the New York Stock Exchange, and how to make sure that our materials and our strategy is on point, right, for our shareholders. That's experience that can help turn around City Hall. And I don't think that experience makes me less attractive to the voters, because I'm still a kid from Dove. Right?
Speak on it, yo.
I'm still a kid who spent my time at Reverend Stewart's church in Lee Harvard, going to Vacation Bible School, speaking at the Easter brunch. With my purple suit, with the 4 buttons and my gaiters, right? I mean, but I know what it's like to grow up and live in this city and struggle in this city. When my mom graduated from Adams, she was driving a hoopty that was so bad till I was in high school. I had to start with a screwdriver. right? There was a lot of pain and embarrassment in that, but I knew she was doing what she had to do to make sure that I could have the experience to one day be in the boardroom with the CEO of Key Bank. Yeah. Imagine if every kid from Mount Pleasant had that opportunity. Where would this city be?
Thriving.
Shout out to mom.
And so we have to change this narrative that to be a public servant, that I have to spend my whole life being a career politician. Because if we had more politicians who had experience leading nonprofits, leading businesses, leading schools, this whole city would be a lot better. Yeah. And we need more diverse folks running for office to change the game. That's how this stuff gets better. It doesn't get better by having the same people do the same thing all the time. Yeah. And that's the key to making this community better, in my opinion.
I like it.
So sticking with the entrepreneurship and technology field, how do you plan to create attractive opportunities for tech developers to move or invest in Cleveland and even set up their headquarters here?
Well, I think this really boils down to having a culture at City Hall that believes in technology. Yeah. When you look at our website, guess when our website was last updated? When President Bush was in office.
Oh my!
I was gonna guess like 2009.
Yo,
yeah, like it's bad. It's bad. The fact that if you're a parent, you can't go online and get a rec schedule, right, for what's going on at the pool or to host a basketball tournament.
Simple things.
It's ridiculous.
But who do they? It's I don't know. Let's just say, or is anybody? Are there any entry level positions or people or interns or young
Who's the
people?
webmaster?
Yeah, right.
Where's the webmaster?
And I think it's for them. It's just let's just do the basics and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you have what's going on in Miami. It's just phenomenal right now. The mayor essentially just launched this effort, which we should definitely do in Cleveland, where you could start a business from your smartphone.
Yeah.
All the permits right here, one-stop shop.
That's crazy.
Right. You think about the fact that, we can't essentially find a way to have parking permits, our meters.
Yeah. Why can't we not pay a meter by the phone? That is ridiculous.
But I go to, you go to Shaker, Cleveland Heights, Sugar Falls. They have smart meters.
Yeah.
Right? In their parking lots. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense. And so these are basic things we should be doing where, other cities were doing a decade ago. Yeah. We're 20 years behind. Mm-hmm. And so I think by starting to change that culture as mayor, then, folks will say, Cleveland is a tech-friendly place to invest and grow a business.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so I have two questions. I want to start with just this to follow up with what you were just saying about advancing Cleveland technologically. But so when you talk about that and you talk about things that we may need as a city, are there any specific plans that you have for the CMSD school district? Mm-hmm. Because, and for the people that's listening, and from people that's listening in the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, Germany, Japan, whatever
international
military
base
podcast. That is.
Yeah, talk your talk.
Seriously,
you guys going global.
Yo, I'm gonna always do the humble flex.
Come on, baby.
I'm gonna get them off. Yo,
Come
my man
now.
said $1.8 billion.
If he's gonna flex, we're gonna flex.
We gonna flex. But so I'm talking about the Cleveland school districts and all of the public schools in Cleveland. So when we talk about those schools, are there going to be any ways that we can expect or anything that we can look forward to seeing done as far as invest in tech or even the education in tech for our school district? Because essentially, that is where we will see the tilt change.
I think the first thing we have to do to truly turn around CMSD and have a highly competitive public school district in the city, because that's table stakes, right? I mean, for us to truly be a city where we can attract families to stay and grow our tax base, public education is essential to that. So, I mean, first and foremost, you think about the fact that about a third of our kids haven't logged online since the pandemic started.
Right.
And we had massive learning loss. And the achievement gap was massive even before COVID-19. That's only been exacerbated. And so as mayor, I intend to lead and have a strategy to address the learning loss we've seen due to COVID-19, whether that's having year-round school or year-round mentorship programs, whatever it takes, we have to do something to address that learning loss due to COVID-19. I would also say we've seen dramatic disruption in public education due to this pandemic that I think we need to really lean into and not waste this moment to kind of do things differently in education. You know, I want to make sure that if you're a high school student in CMSD, that there's an opportunity for you to have year-round learning where you're actually having an internship, year-round apprenticeship program, so that when you graduate from CMSD, you're not only graduating with a high school diploma, but you got a credential.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Right? So you can, you know, say you don't want to go to Ohio State or OU or American University or Howard, but you actually want to go to Lincoln Electric and be an IT analyst. There's a pathway to the middle class when you graduate from CMSD with the right credentials to take that job that don't require a college degree. And so as the mayor who controls not only CMSD, but the Workforce Investment Board, and who is the CEO of that board and helps architect that strategy, I need to connect those systems to work together so that I'm working with industry and those in-demand sectors to align our curriculum inside CMSD so kids have the skills they need to graduate to be workforce ready.
I like it.
I would also say that we need to have more robust after-school programs throughout the city. That's what saved me. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because when I left the schoolhouse, mama said, you're going to be in science club, spelling bee, you're going to do something. Right? Because all hell was going to break loose when I left the school building. Right? Doing whatever God knows what I was going to do.
For sure.
And so we need to make sure that we have those wraparound services in every neighborhood. And those services need to be of high quality to make sure that kids are busy all the time.
Do you think it's like, and I'm seeing this, do you think it is I've seen a trend that we're kind of like investing like charter schools a little bit more, but we're not investing in like kind of our legendary schools, like our Glenvilles, our Adams, our Collinwoods. They even saw like Collinwoods on the combine with Glenville at one point in time, and people were like, it was a little tricky. You go to Glenville, that's like going to a college, you feel me? But how do you kind of want to combat that, or even that too? We heard Bosch here in our previous interview, how he was saying that, you know, the CEO of CMSD, he wants to get him out of here, you feel me? But like, not saying you might be on that extreme, but to a sense, like, can you tackle that real quick for me?
You know, I think this is about making sure parents have choice of high quality, right, choices to send their kids to a high quality school in every zip code in this city. You know, I think there are some very effective public charter schools that CMSC actually sponsors, and they are a part of the district, and we should invest in those. I'm adamantly against for-profit charter schools, particularly with no accountability, because, you know, kids are going to these for-profit charter schools, and they're taking taxpayer money that could be going to public schools, right, and preying on parents who may not, you know, have all the right information they need to figure out where to send their kid to school.
Right.
And so I think it's about how do we have quality choice in every neighborhood. And, you know, as mayor, I got to do everything I can to make sure I'm giving parents the agency to dictate what does choice look like and what do we need to do to make sure that, you know, if a school isn't performing, we got to close it and open up a new school with the right parent and neighborhood engagement that reflects the needs of the neighborhood. Because what's needed in Mount Pleasant may be very different than what's needed in Tremont. Right. And our education strategy needs to reflect that level of nuance based on the conditions of those neighborhoods. And as mayor, I got to set that vision and lead that charge on day one.
So when you spoke previously about, you know, we'll say extracurriculars and, you know, for like, so like an example of mine is, so a lot of my time was spent in the Cleveland Heights Rec Center growing up. That's where my mom dropped me off. I'll pick you up when I pick you up. So like you said, kind of combating those extracurriculars after school. Like, so what does that look like for certain cities? So like Cleveland Heights has a big rec center, but like South Euclid does not. Cleveland is, you know, those are, you know, Glenville's out there. They're different. So what does that look like for you? Yeah, with those extracurriculars, because even you could get to the Boys and Girls Clubs. Those Boys and Girls Clubs aren't as thriving as they used to be.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we have to do, to your point, is identify across the city what are the most effective after-school programs that exist, and how do we, you know, take city dollars and philanthropic dollars and other private sector dollars to invest and scale those programs across the entire city.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we have to do. The second thing we have to do is do what we've seen in New York and other cities like Cincinnati as well, where, you know, they have a children's cabinet led by the mayor or another governmental leader that essentially quarterbacks and coordinates that kind of service delivery with all the key stakeholders, like the social work providers, like the Boys and Girls Club, to make sure that we have a coordinated strategy around investing in what works. We don't have that kind of coordination right now. And as mayor, it's my responsibility to do that. Because I can identify pockets of money inside CMSD, inside my rec center department, to make sure I can scale and invest in what works, but also hold these programs accountable. And the county also plays a large role in this because they administer essentially all of the social programs that come out of the state and federal government are at the county. And so as mayor, I have to work with the county executive as well to coordinate that effort. You know, I tried to do this when I worked for the county executive in 2011, and we laid out a complete strategy around doing it. And so there are models that exist out there. We just need the political leadership and the courage to try to get it done.
Yo, you know, I think luckily enough, well, I don't even know if luckily is the word, but obviously the four of us right now that are in this room and in this space, we have some information and education on when you bring up things and conversations that involve technology and education. So we were doing some homework, right? And a big issue that surrounding cities of Cleveland have had recently are cyber attacks, right? And this is changing the tempo a little bit, but there was a cyber attack on the food bank, and because of the cyber attack, they ended up having to halt their services for a day. There was a cyber attack at a business in Solon called Thermodex, and the result of that was they lost $65,000 because of the cyber attack. And then also, yo, it sounds like I'm talking about the streets right now.
Get in your bag, man.
Also, everybody is personally facing cyber attacks. Like everybody, regardless of what social media platform you use.
You send me that email. Somebody in Singapore trying to log in your account.
Every time my Hulu.
They're coming for the STEMI.
Dude, there's somebody named Jeffrey that I just made a profile
or the
for.
PayPal stuff.
Come on now,
dude. So with individuals facing cyber attacks, and our small businesses and large businesses facing cyber attacks, how are we going to educate not just the kids, but the blue collars, the white collars? How are we educating the people who live here on cybersecurity? And even to take it to another level, is there any way that we can expect our leadership to help provide extra security for us?
I mean, that's a really thought-provoking question. It's something I haven't really thought about that much in terms of policy priorities, but I would say the first thing that comes to mind would be having a mayor who actually uses technology.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, and embracing it. That needs to be a key part of it. I would also, think about, I know that CSU and CASE have launched the Cybersecurity Institute.
Okay.
And there's a consortium organizing around that for companies, but, figuring out we can apply some of that education and training to the average resident and other small businesses as well, I think go a long way. Making sure as mayor we have a very robust cybersecurity strategy to protect, city services and the city budget and our infrastructure. You think about the water department, Cleveland Public Power, the airport, CMSD. These are critical assets that I need to make sure that I'm managing effectively and being a good steward of those assets to protect every aspect of our infrastructure, whether it's, brick and mortar infrastructure or our cyber and technology infrastructure, right? And so being able to call the CIO at Key Bank and say, hey, what have you done at Key around cybersecurity, and what can I do as mayor to make that, a strategy priority for us, throughout the city. And having those relationships, I think, can go a long way as well.
I want to add a quick follow-up to that, too. I think I was watching an interview between you and the person who was interviewing you, his name is escaping me at the moment, but it was with the city club.
Oh, Dan Walter. Yep. Yeah.
And so this conversation that you all were having about past leadership and maybe even current leadership outsourcing for guidance and information and education on how to run our city.
Consultant.
And hiring consultants. I guess for the people who may not be aware of that process and how that has happened, can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk more about the example in the interview, I was really talking about the West Side market. And the city has hired a consultant to come up with a plan and a strategy for the West Side market. And as someone who has been a consultant in my life, I think it's really an indictment on the fact that we haven't had any bold leadership to say, I'm the mayor, it's up to me to make a decision.
Yeah.
And we can't use consultant reports as a scapegoat to make a decision.
Right.
And case in point for the West Side market, we should maintain that asset and own the asset, but we are not experts at running a market.
Yeah.
Purely.
Ain't what it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And so how about we find a best-in-class operator who understands how to manage a really phenomenal market experience and, have them run the market while, we hold accountability of that operator because we maintain and own that asset.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to have a mayor who can be decisive, but also recognize that I won't have all the answers. If someone says they have all the answers to you now as a candidate or as mayor, they're lying to you.
I like the transparency.
Right?
That's real.
And I'm going to make sure I'm going to have a team that says, you know what, if you don't have the answer, Mayor Bibb, let's go figure out what the answer is and come back to you and give you with a set of choices to make.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use my experience, my judgment, and my competence to be the man to make the decision in the room.
Right.
That's my job as the CEO of the city. And I think that's the kind of leadership folks deserve.
Yeah.
So in this city, how can I put this? People describe this city as a black and white city. And I say that I say in the terms of race, but I say in the terms of just how we operate, just from economics and everything like that. We're a very segregated city, so
you're very educated when you say economic. I've been walking around saying
he put a little British spin on it too. Economic.
Hey man, come on now, baby.
He's got that YSL on. He's feeling himself right now like that. That's what it is.
Hey, go on, baby. Nah, but so we understand that the white median income in the city is around $60,000, $60,000 yearly, while the black median income is around $30,000. That's half.
2x, yeah.
And then we know that black unemployment is 3 times higher than our white counterparts in the city. As mayor, how do you want to fix that? Because it seems like, every day we just see people that look like us. We're struggling,
suffering.
Me personally, I don't want to just keep blaming on COVID because that was a problem way
COVID.
before we was coughing. You feel me? Way before we was coughing, we wasn't coughing up dollars.
It's been a problem for 50 years.
So how can you, if you become mayor, how would you fix that?
I mean, symbolically, I would say this off the jump. I think the campaign we're building is starting to bridge that divide between East Side and West Side.
Yeah,
I think we've let race-based politics undermine our city for far too long, pitting one side of town against the other side of town.
Yeah,
and I think we all, as just citizens, we got to get out of our comfort zone and do things differently and move differently to truly build a unified city. Yeah. That's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say, we got to be real about the fact that until we get communities like Mount Pleasant, Lee Harvard, Huff, and Glenville, and Buckeye, and Clark Fulton humming again, the city will never be successful. Yeah. Never, right? Doesn't make sense to have a thriving downtown and urban core if my grandma, who's still on Dove, can't walk within 15 minutes and have a grocery store that sells fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Or it takes her 30 minutes to get on a bus to come downtown if she wants to do business with the city. That's a shame. And so as mayor, I intend to prioritize leveraging major economic capital or economic capital to make sure we are bringing back those forgotten neighborhoods, because, you know, the Southeast side, where I was born and raised, used to be a beacon of the black middle class. When my grandma came up here from the Jim Crow South in Alabama, she wanted to be around black folks that were doing well and thriving. And that was the American dream, and she made it. But the fact that her housing value hasn't recovered since the Great Recession in 08. And, you know, she bought that as an asset that she thought she could pass on to me as her grandbaby, to be a way to transfer wealth and build legacy wealth creation, is a travesty and a sad indictment on our city. I would also say this. For too long in the city, we have removed the importance of political power and economic power.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? We are a majority black city,
Yes.
and there is a lot of greatness in that we have yet to truly tap into. And as mayor of a majority black city, if black people aren't doing well economically, then it's a sad indictment on my leadership. And if black folks are doing well in Cleveland, all of Cleveland's going to succeed and thrive.
Yeah.
And I think white folks believe that too, because all of our destinies as a people are interconnected. And until we fix that divide, I don't think we're going to be able to be the city I think we can be.
Yeah.
So speaking on, you know, we'll say building back up those Huffs, those St. Clairs, all of that, what would be your answer to that? Because some people say gentrifying that or building it up and pushing those people out. As a main example, we see all the time, you know, love the Cleveland Clinic, but that's what they do. They purchase those churches over there, those houses over there.
Let's talk about Case. Let's talk about Case too.
Case as well. So what does that look like for you in terms of, okay, building it up, but making sure those people can, one, afford, like we just said, the income is significantly different, one, afford to stay in those areas, but also want to stay in those areas, that the change isn't, we'll say, lack of better terms, too much that they can't handle.
You know, I think this is about doing everything I can as mayor to identify what tools can I give residents in those neighborhoods to buy back the block. So what does that look like? Right? You have examples like a community land trust. So what's a community land trust? A community land trust essentially allows residents in a neighborhood to purchase and acquire real estate assets, and they own those assets through a collective organization. And it allows them over time to build equity value in those assets.
I think Ward 7 has it, don't they?
Yeah, and you know, Ward 7 is starting to do it with the Huff Land Trust. You're starting to see that in the Clark Fulton neighborhood. That's something we should think about scaling across the entire city. Yeah, to give low and moderate income residents the ability to build that long-term wealth creation systemically.
So do you think, following up that, but and I understand those aspects, but I think from the city standpoint, I think the city structurally, like infrastructure-wise, is built to not serve us. So, and I say that, so in Cleveland, we have 3 main trains that go through the city. Out of those 3 main trains, 2 run through predominantly white neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? Red Line runs straight from east to west, but yeah. And then even thinking for our freeways, how they run, and they run through predominantly white cities. Even just how 480s ran and 271s ran and all those things. Do you believe that the city of Cleveland, from an infrastructure way, is I'm trying to use the right word to say.
Well, you said economic.
I can't digress.
On whatever
but
you
what I'm trying to say is, do you think the infrastructure of the city does not favor us? That's what it seems like.
Absolutely. I mean, redlining.
Right.
And even the way banks invest in our community are still based on maps rooted in redlining. Yeah. So we have to change the map.
Yeah.
And I would also say, to my earlier example around transit, more transit-oriented development that better connects communities like Mount Pleasant and Glenville and Huff to economic opportunity needs to be a priority. I mean, I have this vision of what people are starting to call the 15-minute city, where within 15 minutes, you have a bus you can get on to get to a job, or a job you can walk to in your neighborhood, a grocery store you can walk to, neighborhood-based businesses, dry cleaners, a bodega, barbershop, salons, etc. Having, what we've seen during COVID is your neighborhood really matters in terms of the amenities you can access.
Yeah.
And so how do I make sure that every neighborhood has the same high quality of amenities that reflect the culture and the assets of those communities? I mean, you and I were talking about DC earlier.
Yeah.
And I think there's some pockets of DC that have done this really well, and some that haven't.
Yeah.
And I think when you stop building with the people, that's where you get gentrification.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to just start to have a different conversation about this word gentrification, because it means so much. And it's such a loaded term nowadays in the political lexicon.
Negative connotation too.
Yeah, right. And I think that, my grandmama would tell you, she wants some money. She wants investment to come to Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
She wants to see some cranes in the sky.
Come on,
Right? Right?
Crane on hallway to
I don't want to have to coast the lounge, but but
for sure.
it's important. I mean, people want to see their neighborhoods being built up.
Yeah.
But they want to see, people from the neighborhood working on those jobs,
Right.
and getting those wages, and owning the construction company that got the contract to build that grocery store in Huff or in Mount Pleasant. And as mayor, it's my responsibility to hold folks that are investing in the city accountable to that standard.
Yeah.
And we got great examples. You look at Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, first black mayor of Atlanta. And Atlanta has been known to be now the Mecca for black folks.
Wakanda.
And
I know, right?
and that and Maynard started that because when they read that the airport in Atlanta, Maynard said, "Look, if I don't see a black engineering firm, a black contracting firm doing construction, that airport ain't getting done."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what's in the best interest of the least among us in the underserved communities will be in the best interest of everybody.
Yeah.
And we need to hold everybody to that standard in terms of economic investment in this city.
Yeah.
So we spoke about the wages, the difference in, black versus white. So now, we're getting to this conversation when we hear about it, with Joe Biden and all of that in terms of bumping minimum wage up. So the minimum wage has kind of varied, we'll say, since we're a little seasoned, all a little seasoned here, from $7.25 to around, to $15 we're talking about now.
Very big leap.
Very big leap. Very big leap. So what's your forecast on how, this would impact the culture? Because, talking about this by 2025, it being to $15. Right now, I think minimum wage is what, like $8.20, $8.25, something like that.
Something like that.
I think it'll change the culture in a huge way in terms of just giving people dignity.
Yeah.
And I think we had a missed opportunity in Cleveland to actually do it. I mean, a couple of years ago, folks mobilized to get this on the ballot.
Yeah.
And the city said no. They said, your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. And so giving folks dignity, giving people hope, making sure folks have a self-sustaining wage to get them out of poverty, being the poorest big city in America.
Yeah.
I mean, that will go a long way in Cleveland.
I got a question too, and to follow up on that, like, Cleveland has been known as this place that's super affordable to live. Like, some of my closest friends are from California.
You don't know how affordable Cleveland is till you get out of Cleveland.
Come on,
Yeah, that's true.
Seriously. And so some of the people that I know that have moved here were from California, New Jersey, Florida, and they're like, "Oh no, dude, I'm about to just stay here because it's so easy to live here versus going back home." Will we even see Cleveland sort of lose that reputation if we do begin these large investments, if we do begin to raise the minimum wage? How does that affect our reputation in that aspect?
No, because if you're poor, this is not an affordable city to live in.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when we have an average median household income of less than $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
And 40% of their expenses are going to housing and transit.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's and so we got to find a way to make sure that we are lifting people out of poverty. But as we get more investment, having a strong social safety net to be a backstop for folks that aren't succeeding, that are still trapped in poverty, that are still struggling to make ends meet, needs to be a key part of making sure we're still an affordable place to live, work, and play, and to have a shot at life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for local governments to think about, innovative programs to address that. You think about the fact that, when I'm talking to residents, particularly in some of these trendier neighborhoods that are starting to blossom, Tremont, Ohio City, Detroit, Shoreway,
right?
You have legacy homeowners that have been there for 40 years that are getting priced out and pushed out.
Yeah.
And so, their neighbor might have a home that's worth $400,000 now.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, their home maybe was worth $100,000. Now it's also worth $400,000. And now they're paying property taxes on a home that's worth $400,000, where they're used to paying property taxes on a home that's worth $100,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So targeted property tax relief for those legacy homeowners to keep them in the city. Right.
Yeah.
As we get more investment like that, needs to be important.
Yeah.
And one of the things you're going to hear me talk about a lot throughout the campaign is this idea of hyper-local economic development.
Uh-huh.
Right. And, for far too long in this city, we've had economic incentives that have been a one-size-fits-all approach.
Mm-hmm.
But, what Mount Pleasant might need is going to be very different than what Tremont might need in terms of economic incentives.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I think differently as a mayor with investors to be creative about what types of incentives we're deploying based on the unique needs and conditions of that neighborhood with a high level of scrutiny around equity, right? Mm-hmm. Equity for our residents in terms of having a racial equity analysis in those investments, but also equity in terms of wealth creation to make sure residents are benefiting from these investments as well.
Yeah. And then to follow up, I think Johnny and Don have brought up good points when it comes to, so one thing that you had referenced earlier is sort of not drowning our political races and debates in or not baiting people with these race debates, right? But when we look at, I know Johnny, you had mentioned that Cleveland has been looked at as a black or white city, but then also we do have other populations here, and even though blacks and whites are the majority, we do have a strong and healthy Asian population here in the city.
A Latino community growing.
Exactly. And so what do you think it may look like to unify all of these fronts on a political basis?
I think it looks different. I think the city would look dramatically different if we engaged and put more people power behind folks who haven't had a seat at the table in a long time.
Yeah.
And I intend to do that and set that charge symbolically as mayor with my cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a cabinet that reflects the diversity of our neighborhoods, the diversity of our culture, the diversity of our professional experiences in the community, because I think that goes a long way to show people that, oh, this city reflects me.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really good example out of Minneapolis. The city there essentially looked at every single city department, every board and commission where the mayor had appointment authority, and the cabinet of the mayor's office, and did an audit and to identify what does the city look like from a race, income, professional experience perspective, and how do those metrics align to what the city leadership and people that the mayor appoints to boards and commissions look like.
Yeah.
To make sure that it was in line with the city.
Yeah.
And I think by having that kind of strategy and operationalizing that inside City Hall, it would really go a long way to make sure folks feel like they have a seat at the table and their voices are being heard inside city government.
I love it.
So, over the past years, we've seen Cleveland rise in violence in the city. So even from Cleveland police released a report saying that crime has gone up, murders has gone up 42%, and a lot of that is contributed to gang violence. So I believe that the response to that was having the FBI task force, combating gangs and gang violence. But besides that method, you as a potential mayor, how can you just other methods of just from either community policing, from any other ways you think of, and how you think we could combat this rise in crime in the city?
We gotta fundamentally rethink policing in this city, man. It's broken.
Yeah.
Bottom line is broken.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the fact that we spent nearly $30 million over the last 10 years to settle police misconduct claims.
Yeah.
That's $30 million less that we can invest to close the digital divide, to fix these potholes that continue
Come
to
on,
hit my
yo,
pocketbook.
yo, he's attacking the issue.
And the pocketbooks of all
Yeah.
many folks across the city. And I don't say that to dehumanize the pain, but I say it to talk about the weight of the economic and the moral case to make for us to rethink policing. And this is personal for me in a number of different ways. My dad was a cop and a firefighter. My dad was actually one of the first black cops in Cleveland Heights. And he did both jobs for nearly 30 years. You know, I had to bury a family friend last year. She was
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. She was the 131st homicide in this city.
Yeah.
And you know what struck me was I was a pallbearer in her funeral, and all her friends were, you know, Instagramming live the burial.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like our kids have normalized that trauma.
Yeah.
There was a lot of trauma.
We have to tackle that trauma. And so there are a couple things I want to do as mayor. One, we truly need an independent civilian review oversight board in the city that has meat and real accountability to hold our police officers accountable. And this isn't about being anti-police. This is about, you know, giving cops and good cops the tools they need to do their job better. Secondly, you think about what other cities are doing across the country. I love what we're seeing in Columbus to the south of us. They're going to start to pilot having social workers and mental health professionals, you know, go with officers to nonviolent dispatch calls.
I like it.
So this co-responder model is something we should definitely do in Cleveland to make sure we're starting to tackle that trauma that I talked about to address some of the root causes of crime.
Right.
I would also say there are a couple of different models coming out of Stockton, California. Someone I admire a lot, former Mayor Michael Tubbs, has done a lot of creative things in Stockton to address gang violence. One idea I'd love to think about in Cleveland is called the Advanced Peace Initiative, where essentially they go to talk to gang members and say, look, you can get out of this gang, right? And we're not going to lock you up, but what do you need? You need a job? You need a GED? Does your grandma need 6 months of rent? Like, what you need? What you need?
Why? The root of why you're in the game.
Like, what will it take for me not to lock you up, for you to stop committing this crime, and really start to kind of, you know, turn your life around? What do you need? And how can I help?
Right.
And what we've seen in Stockton, dramatic reductions in gang violence and gun homicides. Sacramento has started to pilot this initiative as well. And so those are types of interventions that we should start to do in Cleveland to tackle some of these issues that we talked about. And it goes back to my earlier comments about what happens when you leave a schoolhouse. I remember when I was at kindergarten at Corlett in Mount Pleasant, and my cousin Chris, who's also murdered during my second year of grad school.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. You know, the gang started to talk to me when I was in kindergarten. They started talking to my cousin Chris when he was in the third grade. So my mama, hearing that, she says, "Oh, I got to keep this kid busy." And but we have parents who are struggling day in and day out just to survive. Government's got to step in and try to help hit that gap and try to solve that problem. And so it goes back to meeting the whole needs of our community, and it's beyond just policing. Right, it's meeting the whole needs of our residents to make sure they have what they need to succeed and thrive day in and day out.
So, since we're talking, I'm gonna switch a little gear real quick, but let's talk about community trust. Community trust within the city. So, on February 23rd,
I know where it's going.
I know I'm going with it.
Yeah.
Ken Johnson, 40 years of being a city councilman, was convicted. Was indicted on 15 charges. I want to say that. Let me switch that real quick. Indicted. I want to say that indicted.
Come on now.
15 felony charges, like conspiracy to commit theft of a federal program, aiding and assisting preparations of false tax returns, witness tampering, falsifying records on a federal investigation. But even though that's kind of a big indictment, but over the from 2010 to 2017, we've seen 171 federal public convictions in the city. You know, how do we deal with corruption in the city of Cleveland? It's gotten out of hand. As elected mayor, how can you ensure that trust back? Because from my understanding, let me know if I'm wrong. Even after those indictments, he's back on city council within the week. And as a citizen looking at that knowing that a city councilman of 40 years is stealing money from his ward that he serves, and he's indicted and he's back on city council within the week, like it's nothing big, and he's on the Zoom call. How you as a mayor, how can you gain that trust back from me?
I gotta embody it, and the fact that I was the only one out of any member of city council or any presumptive candidate for mayor to call for his resignation speaks to the kind of mayor I intend to be. Corruption will have no role or play no part in my administration as mayor. And if it does, I'm firing anybody that's accountable for that.
Oh, I love when they get to talk about firing people.
Spicy.
Right.
He's on the spicy sauce.
And so, and I want to make sure that my cabinet and my administration prioritizes accountability and transparency. I think it's past time we explore having an office of an inspector general inside City Hall to make sure we are good stewards of public money and hard-earned taxpayer dollars that aren't wasted to keep our existing political class in office. And the fact that it took folks weeks and weeks to call for a resignation shows a lack of courage.
Yeah.
Folks don't have courage in this community because they want to get along to get along.
Yeah.
Do you think that because for it to be that many federal public convictions, you know what I'm saying? For that, for this long lasting history of corruption, how I look at it, I'm doing my thing. I'm potty.
Yeah,
I'm potty. That tells me that it isn't just one man just doing his own thing. He just got caught.
It's a culture.
It's a culture.
It's a culture. Yeah.
It's a lot of people looking a blind eye, and it's normalized. So you come from a long normalization doesn't happen overnight. It happens over years and time. But you being a younger individual, you coming into a culture that might be grassrooted in corruption. How do you think that, and not even saying how can you combat it, but how you think you maneuver around that? Because it's kind of like the new guy coming to the mafia table, and they've been doing, I mean, I'm not saying mafia, but like they've been doing stuff for so long one way, and you're coming in, they're like, we've been doing this like this. How can you not get, I guess I want to put it in simple terms, little broed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still the mayor.
I call shots.
Yeah, I'm about to turn the sound effects all the way up.
Right? Like, I'm the mayor.
Yeah.
You're going to play by my rules or don't play at all.
I love it.
Yo, come on, man. We need that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of leadership people deserve. Because as mayor, it's not my seat.
Yeah.
I don't own, City Hall. It belongs to my grandma Sarah. It belongs to, Paula Camp, who I met in Ohio City. It belongs to my, the woman I met at the post office who lives in Lee Harvard, Deborah, who said, I ain't never heard of you. I heard you kin to Leon Bibb, and I read some good stuff about you in the paper, and we need some change. So you got my vote, right? The seat belongs to the people,
right?
And so I'm just doing the people's work.
Yeah.
And so it's up to me to lead with that kind of trust and hold myself to that standard and hold myself accountable in order to do that. And I'm not bringing any baggage because I ain't no career politician.
Yeah.
Right? I'm doing this because I want to serve.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be my ethos. And I want to make sure my cabinet also has those same values. And I'm going to work like hell to make sure that everybody that works in City Hall, from the electrician in the public works department to the head of economic development, shares that same vision and strategy. And I'm going to hold all of them accountable to get the job done.
I love it. Well, so, I mean, obviously, just to sort of wrap things back around, obviously, when we talk about Cleveland Can't Wait, I think you laid some important foundations and groundwork prior to you even getting here in your journey of becoming mayor. And then also, I think you've gave some amazing explanations and some amazing opportunities for us all to educate ourselves and dig even deeper into some of the things that we talked about today. Is there anything that you feel like there's something else that I want people to be aware of that maybe we didn't bring to the table today? Is there
especially
anything?
to a younger audience?
Yeah, I would say this. A couple things. One, we all need to raise the bar.
Yeah.
We need to raise the bar in terms of who runs for office and who we elect in public office. We need to raise the bar in terms of how we lead our nonprofits, how we lead our businesses, right? You know, you guys got to continue to raise the bar like you're doing, having hard conversations with folks like me about who want to lead the city and how to make the city better. And so I think this is a moment now in 2021. It's all about raising the bar.
Yeah.
Because our city and the people who live in the city and who love the city deserve better and should demand better as well. I would also say, you know, when I thought about running for mayor and had conversations with folks across the city, a lot of them told me that I needed to wait my turn.
Yeah.
And that I needed to start on council or run for the state house. And, you know, fair advice. But I grew up in the church. And one of my favorite stories is the story of Moses. And Moses in the burning bush. And if you know about Moses was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of persecution, right? And when Moses came across that burning bush, you know, God said, "Okay, I've chosen you to lead. Now go lead." But Moses said, "Look, I ain't never led nobody.
Yeah.
I don't have a PhD in leadership. I can't speak. How am I supposed to lead?" And God says, "Look, man, I'm not here. I'm not hearing all that. Are you available to serve?
Yeah.
I'm not here to question your ability. I got you on the ability side. I'm gonna give you a kitchen cabinet to make sure you can go and crush Pharaoh. But I need you to show up and step in and make yourself available to serve."
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm asking the voters and letting the voters know I'm available to serve. And we all need to make ourselves available to serve because our city needs new dynamic leadership to really change these issues. Poorest big city in America, 50% of our kids living in poverty, the worst city in this country for black women.
It's ridiculous.
Right? We all got a role to play, right, to build this movement to change the city. And so I can't wait. We can't wait. And Cleveland can't wait.
Right. So final question that I love to ask. These guys look at me all the time like, "Dang, you about to ask it again?" Yes, I'm going to ask the question again. Right? So before you go, we need 3 words, not just describe you as a mayor, but as a man. So 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Humble. Empathetic. And I'm gonna have a 2-part word here: action oriented.
Put that little hyphen in there.
There's a lot of syllables in that.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
But
My campaign manager would tell you, like, I'm like, what are we doing? Let's go.
But you know what? Just from having this interview, well, I wish you the best of luck through your journey. I think you're bringing up the issues that they're not the issues that are the attention grabbers, they're not the money ones, but they're the ones that need to happen. They're the issues that a lot of people don't understand, and that just comes from just a plethora of issues from economic and education and stuff like that. However, but though these issues that you're bringing up, which I very do appreciate, you're bringing up issues that need to happen and that they're not just immediate change for tomorrow. You're thinking 20 years in the future. You're thinking about ways you can catch us up to cities and then go beyond. Well, while other potential candidates are maybe thinking in the ways of how can I get the attention? How can I say the shock value
to get elected?
And then from there, and a lot of those things are social justice issues, you know, and dollar signs when it comes to relates to them, but they don't understand how invest technology and how you think. You think in a very strategic way that maybe a lot of, not say constituents, maybe the people that you want to serve might not understand at one point, but I think it'll be good for them in the long run. Mm-hmm. And now, however I just said what I just said,
that's helpful.
But
yeah.
That's my thought process. Just hearing you speak and how we just had a dialogue, that's what I'm thinking of.
We got to get back to the basics, do the big things.
Yes.
And those things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And as mayor, it's going to be my job to get the trend line going in the right direction so that the next mayor, because I'm not going to be mayor for life. Yeah. I can tell you that.
Are you not pulling a Frank?
No.
Yo. Hey, I didn't want to say
it. No. He said no.
But, after 2 successful terms as mayor, I want to see us by 2030 be the best city in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Right? And be the best mid-sized city in America. Yeah. I think we can get that done in the next decade, and I'm going to work like hell to make that happen.
It's crazy it's crazy how Cleveland infrastructure is made for 1 million people.
Yeah.
But the total population is around 300,000. And then, like you said, the election last election was like, I think it was 38,000 people that voted. It just kind of tells you like the decline.
Yeah.
I used to work with a dude. They used to tell me all this stuff we used at work. Amazing person.
Well, shouts out to him.
Shout out to him. Shout out to Jeff.
Exactly who he is.
Shout out to Jeff because he working like the housing department too for Cleveland.
Okay,
shout out to
Jeff. We see you out here, Jeff. Next time, Jeff. But most importantly, though, Justin, we appreciate you.
Thank you for
having me. We appreciate you coming through. We appreciate you all making the time to have this conversation and doing the work, building the foundation that you've built, and working for the things that you are aiming to tackle. I think those are things that people can look forward to. And regardless of how this race turns out, I would still love to see you have a role in educating, influencing, and getting those things done.
I'm not going anywhere.
Please.
Yeah, drop some bombs on that.
I know even if you do not win, is very crucial. I think you play a very crucial part in the advancement of this city. I think you're a voice that a lot of people don't want to do or don't want to say. And I think coming from you looking like looking like us, and them seeing that someone of us that understands our struggle is saying like, yo, we need to do these things. I think that's a good symbol.
Absolutely.
I love it, man. I love it. So listen, one big thing that we do on this show, right? Okay, and you may not have had the opportunity to do this in an interview yet because we're formal, but we're not that.
Yeah.
We do shout outs, man. Is it somebody that you like, they gotta hear my voice? Is it somebody that you would love to shout out or just thank or anybody, man?
Honestly, it's been a crazy couple months since we announced the campaign. I want to shout out my family. My mama been holding it down. Yeah. Grandma Sarah been holding it down. My team, my campaign manager Ryan Puente, and the whole campaign team been holding me down. And really my tribe of friends. When I have rough days on the trail, I can call up my homie, talk about the new Drake album that dropped and like what tracks they're listening to, and not just talk about politics. Because I'm in it 24/7. Yeah. And so being able to just kick back with my crew and kind of my village uplifting me on my dark days has really been a blessing to have. And so just shout out to the whole Bibb village for uplifting me up.
Well, I tell you what, whenever
not it's the Bibb village.
Come on, man. Listen, whenever you want to pull up on us, and we love music here, we love the culture here. So whenever you want to, when that Certified Lover Boy does drop,
I'm waiting. Yeah. I think you've already heard some of the leaked version, right?
Any song you want to pull up at night, we're like we can scratch we can put pause aside. You want to just talk about talk?
Yeah, pull up, man. We love it, and we appreciate this, man. So listen, everybody that listens to this podcast, people that have been supporting this podcast, no matter where you at in this world, no matter where you at in this country, man, make sure you all tap in and get connected with Justin Bibb.
Check out our website, bibbforcle.com, IG, Twitter, Facebook, we're everywhere.
Got to make it happen, man. Until next time, y'all.